What's up, everybody? Welcome back to day 3 of action here at the Gamestars International Group Stage for Clash Royale. I'm Andrew Guy, joined today by my good friend Eric Benamou, our former world champion head coach. Eric, how you doing today, bro?
I'm doing great. I'll never get tired of that introduction because I kind of lost it during 2020 when I couldn't win a game. But, you know, I'll take that 2019 World Championship, and I'm super excited to be here. And today we actually get to cast someone that I actually know, right, from that Team Liquid Academy roster from back when I was a little bit in charge of it. So I'm excited for today.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what he's maybe if he's overgrown since last time you talked to him. But you know, guys, here at GameStars, we have a very different format than at CRL. Obviously, CRL is the duels format, but here at GameStars, it's kind of an introduction to duels. The way it works is every single player has to present 3 decks for competition. They have to win with each and every one of those decks, and those decks can only repeat 6 of the same cards. So the reason that I'm giving you all that information is so we can kind of take a deeper look at what cards have been the most successful so far this week, Eric.
Yeah, these cards are basically those utility cards, right? The ones that you want to see in a lot of different decks. Obviously, we know the E-Barbs are extremely strong in this meta, but throughout the game, you're going to see a lot of the Barb Barrel, the Baby Dragons, Log, Ewas, just because of how useful they are and how well they fit into almost any deck and really any meta. So I'm not really surprised to see that. What I do like to see, though, is that Mega Knight and that Mother Witch, of course, which we're not used to seeing as much back in the day.
Yeah, you know, that Mother Witch is a card that we've seen has really great matchups, especially when going up against something like Graveyard, and honestly, just a lot of bait cards out there. You see right there in the bottom left-hand corner, that Golem deck with Bats, Night Witch, and Skeleton Army running up against Mother Witch was really tough. So these are some of the most popular decks that we've seen so far this week, and as you can see, some have had great success, some have had very little, and those that have had very little are really Golem. When you look here at the bottom left and bottom right, Eric, with Golem actually being pretty good in the meta, what's going on here at GameStars?
It's definitely just been the nerves, in my opinion. I think the Golem players that we've seen haven't really played calm like you should when you're playing Golem. They've been trying to get that tower down before overtime, or just try and really get a Golem down whenever they can. We've even seen it at the bridge. Just need to relax and play the archetype the way it's meant to play, because that's part of Clash. You can have the strongest deck, you can have one of those, but if you don't use it the right way, it's basically useless. And that's the reason me and you are not in CRL and not in GameStars.
Yeah, that's true, because I can talk about it all day long, but I definitely can't play. So let's take a look at some of the action that we saw this week. Obviously, today is day 3, so we're on Group C. We got 32 players from all over the world that are separated into 8 separate groups. Every single day this week, we're going to be going through each one of these groups. Like I said, today is Group C. Yesterday, we saw Group B, where SoCal was able to come out on top following Lucas GSM's performance on day 1. Both of those guys had really stellar performances. Lucas was dominant all day long on Monday. SoCal was a bit back and forth. Eric, how do you feel about today in Group C, and honestly, the guy that you know the most about?
Yeah, well, we get to start off with him in Dimas. He's actually, I think, qualified to 2 times top 32 CRL this year already, and he's one of the best Mega Knight players in the game. And we just saw, when we saw the cards, not only one of the most used cards of Mega Knight, but the one with the highest win rate is that Mega Knight deck. So definitely this meta is favoring him a lot, and in my opinion is the front runner for this Group C. We saw yesterday it was a lot more of a fight in, like you said, Group 1. Lucas was very dominant. Yesterday we saw kind of a free-for-all. I expect Dimas's experience to kind of prevail today.
All right, so that's our little rundown on the players from Group C. Let's take a look at them personally here as we look at everyone that's going to be competing today from Group C.
Hello, my name is Joe Ashar. I'm 20 years old and I'm from Lebanon. I've played Clash Royale ever since the beginning. My favorite card in the game is the Log, because obviously you can't stop it. My goal in this tournament is to have fun and reach as far as possible, without forgetting bringing the cash back to my country.
Всем привет, меня зовут Дмитрий, я из города Алматы, Казахстан. Я играю в игру Clash Royale 5 лет. Я считаю себя достаточно сильным игроком. Моя любимая карта Шахтер, потому что за 3 эликсира очень большой профит от нее. Мои сильные стороны в том, что я могу играть практически любой колодой и могу подстраиваться под соперника. Я постараюсь не подвести и показать достойно Казахстан на мировой арене.
Benim adım Berkan, ben 17 yaşındayım, İstanbul'da yaşıyorum. Ben 5 yıldır Clash Royale oynuyorum. Günde 3-4 saat, ama mesela bir sezon bir ay olduğu için bir ayın son haftalarında mesela 7-8 saat oynuyorum. Kupa falan kasıyorum. Kraliyet evi. Royal Giant Mesela canı fazla ve kulelere fazla vuruyor yani. Atak için güzel bir kart. Birinci olmak istiyorum grupta. Birinci olmazsam da ikinci olarak çıkmak istiyorum.
Мене звати Роман, мені 17 років і я з Івано-Франківська. Граю Clash Royale з 2016 року, майже з самого релізу. Тренуюсь я по 3 години кожен день. Моя улюблена карта – це бочка гоблінів, тому що нею можна дуже легко байтити суперників на заклинання і тим самим наносити більше урону і забрати башні. У мене є плани точно дійти, зайняти першу позицію в моїй групі, проте у мене противники дуже сильні, тому буду старатися якомога сильніше, щоб зайняти як мінімум топ-3.
So those are the people competing today, and it was pretty cool to hear some of them say some different cards that were their favorites. We heard a lot of favorite win conditions in Lava Hound, Miner, Graveyard, but today we heard things like Goblin Barrel and Log. Eric, do you think we'll be seeing a little bit more of that today, or do you think they're just talking about stuff that they love personally on ladder?
I was about to say Gas is already a favorite of mine just because he said Log is my favorite because you can't stop it, and technically he's right. You can't stop Log. So I mean that was actually pretty funny to watch, and I'll give him credit. He's not wrong. Just not usually the favorite card we hear out of everyone.
Yeah. So Demas and Gas are going to be our very first matchup of the day. And while you maybe not you didn't train with Demas a lot when he was on Team Liquid Academy, you did say that he was a very, very talented player, and obviously if he's a guy that's been kind of in the top 32 on ladder for a while, do you think that this is maybe the year for him to break through to that next level?
Yeah, I think he's already in that category of the next coming up players. When you qualify top 32 he's top 32 CRL after the qualifiers, which is crazy, right? He made it to day 2 so many times that we haven't seen players like Animan, Pompeo, and all those, they have struggled to get there. So to do that twice is actually incredible. Like you said, he was on an academy team for Liquid. I didn't get to coach him, but I always watched the game, so I definitely saw the talent was there. He said Miner was his favorite card, but that Mega Knight play from him, I expect to see it, and he's very, very good with it.
This is just kind of an off thought because you were just talking about that. Is Miner Mega Knight like viable right now or not really?
I think the most viable thing right now is simply just going with the Mega Knight Hoggy's bait. It's just so strong right now. But yes, you can use Miner Mega Knight. It has to be a very, very controlled deck with the poison and just play very calm. And Dima's starting off with what I expected him to.
Yeah, most likely going to see the Mega Knight here, Flying Machine, Piggies, things like that. Top of your screen, maybe going Graveyard. Of course, Gas at the top, Demas at the bottom. This is the very first game of the day, of our first matchup. This is a best of 5, as are all 4 matches that we will be seeing today. That's a best of 5. Remember, and each player must win with each of their 3 decks. They must win with each one.
Yeah, that was starting off very, very strong there, Gas. That was actually a very good lightning because he understood that the only win condition coming out of the other side was going to be the Huggies. And with the cage, he can mitigate enough damage to where it's not going to be that bad. Get enough damage with the baby dragon. And now here comes another troop that he has to defend. So overall, very, very good play out of Gas starting off.
Yeah, for someone, speaking personally, Lightning is just not a card that I've used a ton in my Clash Royale career. I've always been more of a poison, fireball, smaller spell type of guy. So recognizing right then and there to use that Lightning on the Flying Machine, get some tower damage, and as you said, set himself up for good defense against win condition, that's just heads-up recognition right there. That's what you want to see early on.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I'm not very much of a lightning player, and I think it's partly due to the fact that if you use it at the wrong time, you basically put yourself in a position where you could lose the match just off using the spell. So that's a little bit of the reason I don't use it, but the way he decided to go for it, understood the opponent's deck and everything, was very, very smart. Even though he is a little bit on the back foot now, and I think it's partly due to what we've spoken about so many times, right? When you don't have anything for the Flying Machine, it forces out so much defense out of you.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really hard for Gas to deal with that flying machine, especially as he starts cycling. Demas starts cycling those flying machines on the board. You know, flying machines, Mother Witches, and now you see Zappies all cycled in the same lane. That's just making Gas want to use his big spells where he doesn't, where it's just not an ideal situation. So right now, Demas starting to put together a nice push here as he leaks just a little bit of Elixir.
He leaked a little bit. What I do like to see out of Demas now, I think at the beginning he expected the Gas to be coming in with more of poison because he had only seen the Baby Dragon Ice Wiz, and I'm thinking he thought Splash Art, and that's why he put the Flying Machine where he did. Now that he knows he has Flying Machine, he's not giving up that Tower plus Flying Machine Lightning when he's trying to defend. As you can see, he's placing it a lot higher up and forcing him to, you know, choose. You want to use the Lightning, you're not going to hit the Tower this time.
Pretty nice NATO there, going to pull everything together, although that Barbarrel not able to take all three Zappies off the board. Piggy's in behind that Mega Knight. Flying Machine is going to come off the board to that Ice Wiz just in time.
And he's slowly taking control of this match little by little. And I mean, it is his archetype, right? It's what I expected. It's what I've seen out of him so much. So if you're Gas here, I wouldn't be too worried, just in the fact that, okay, you're playing someone, not only does he have a lot of experience, but he just played his best deck. So you know what? If you lose this, it's not that big of a deal. Move on. He hasn't lost yet, but it's pretty much, in my opinion, a matter of time.
Yeah, I mean, here it is. Hoggy's in on the tower. That's going to be tower for game one going to Demas, formerly of Team Liquid Academy. I have to ask you, Eric, you know, we've seen this now in, I think it's 3 games where we've had someone with NATO not activate King Tower against the Royal Hogs. Now, early on, it was maybe a rougher situation. Maybe it was elixir-wise. Maybe he just thought it was better to defend with that Goblin Cage to get some damage on those Piggies. But what's going on with the lack of King Tower activation against the Piggies? Isn't that kind of a integral thing if you want to beat that deck?
Absolutely. And I think on this specific occasion, it was a little bit more of Demas with the heads up play. You are right. At the beginning, he could have made the choice to either go Goblin Cage or NATO and activate it. It was the only real time he had a chance, because other than that, what Demas did so well was understand that he was going to force out the NATO with the Flying Machine, because it's the only way he can get the Baby Dragon onto it, right? He kept putting it in the middle, right behind the Mega Knight, in a placement where the Baby Dragon wouldn't splash. So he kept forcing out that NATO to try and get rid of the Flying Machine, and it put him in a terrible position, guys. So I mean, you're 100% right. If you're going to win those matchups, you do need King Tower activation, but I think they're just taking a little bit too long to actually get it activated, and then they don't have the chance.
Wow, and that wall breaker in super slow motion does connect, and yeah, Demas was really putting the hurt on with those Flying Machines. Great recognition there, and now Demas again with that Mega Knight. Remember, guys, you can use 6 of the same cards. You just have to change up 2. So 6 of the same cards. We can see Mega Knight in all 3 matchups, but have other cards around it, and the win conditions have to change as you see wall breakers this time around. Do you like it, Eric? Do you think he should just go with what he knows best?
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. It's the same. I mean, not in a cocky fashion, but he does have to understand, look, I have a lot more experience, I've placed better, and overall I just know what I'm doing, and I'm one of the best Mega Knight players in the world. Why am I not gonna play my comfort? They should adapt to me, right? So go for it. Play those Mega Knights the same way I would tell Igor later on in this. Play 3 different versions of Mortar. You have no problem. We've seen him play 17 different Mortars, right? So just go for it.
Yeah, I mean, look, when there's that much money on the line, we're talking about over $30,000 up to grabs, $42,000 total in the pot. Why not play your win condition? Why not play what you know best? So here we go. We were just talking about MK Miner and whether or not it was viable. Right now, Demas is going to try it out with a Wall Breakers MK Miner deck, which we saw a lot in a meta, maybe even just the last meta or 2 metas ago. Strong deck, bridge spam capabilities, and obviously those wall breakers plus miner combination is brutal, as we've already seen that wall breaker connect on the left hand side.
And this deck is so different to the other deck, right? We were just talking about, yeah, they're both Mega Knight, but the way you play both and the way that these decks are made, ooh, that didn't act, that is frustrating. I like the attempt. I really like the attempt. It was valiant effort, a little bit off on the timing, which is when you have a troop that's that weak like the wall breaker, you need to have the perfect timing or the tower is going to take care of it. But I do like the idea he had for it.
Yeah, for sure. We get one more wall breaker connection there on that right-hand side. And Eric, kind of to continue what you were saying is, yeah, this is another Mega Knight deck, but it's just vastly different. And I'm wondering what it is about Demas that just really loves the MK as kind of his go-to tank card. Maybe it's just how much attention it draws, even though it isn't a massive damage dealer until it's on the tower.
I think it's all about timing with the Mega Knight, right? Even though it's a very heavy card and you could think it's pretty obvious when to place it or when not, and very heads up to have that ready to go, because if he did not have that Mega Knight ready to go, that was going to be tower down for sure.
Yeah, that's one of the things we were talking about yesterday, where it's like you watch the best players in the world, you watch them stream, they're always hovering. They're hovering what the next best move most likely is, and that was just locked, loaded, and ready to go. Demas gets that Mega Knight down just in time. 1339 on the bottom right-hand tower to 924 at the top right. Now we finally see that Electro Giant come out once again, you know, very deep into overtime. Does Gas finally pull the trigger on his win condition? Electro Giant, though, one of those cards that can do it in just a single push.
He's definitely very, very well placed here, though, Gas, in the fact that the highest DPS dealer on this deck is that Musketeer. So as long as he can save lightning, which he does there, clearly knows how to play this deck. He doesn't have any DPS because the Mega Knight's not really going to do enough damage to where that Electro Giant isn't going to be all the way towards your tower, or at least tank enough to build the, you know, the right push. So I think at this point Demas might even try and start playing a little of the Musketeers higher up to try, there it is, to try and avoid that lightning to tower. And at least he forced a NATO, but overall it's just, I don't think there's enough DPS.
Yeah, that's a really nice call there, and this is a really, really frustrating situation to be in. Honestly, last night I was playing a few games right before going to sleep, and I found myself in a ladder matchup against Electro Giant. They got one E-Giant push in towards the end of the game. I dropped the Musketeer to the right of my tower, Mortar in the center of the map, because, you know, I always play Mortar. But the second that Muskie steps up, it's in lightning range of the tower, the Musketeer, and the Mortar. And once the three of those are down and that Electro Giant's pretty healthy, it will eat about half your tower HP away. And that's kind of what we saw here is once that first big Electro Giant came in, he got a good lightning down. Electro Giant gets on tower. He's kind of caught in that repetitive cycle of just having to play into that lane and not really able to get out of it. Is there a way to get out of that cycle, Eric, once that initial damage is done? Or are you kind of just in trouble with that matchup?
I think you're just a little bit in trouble at that point. When you really look at it, as well as you play it, there's nothing that could tank for the Musketeer, right? When you think about it, we've seen so many players predict a lightning and tank for the Musketeer, but at this point there's just nothing in this deck. You can't take it with the Barbarrel, then you have the wall breakers and the bats and the zap, and like, so there's nothing really to lightning block that Musketeer, and it's your DPS dealer. So I think Gas played it very, very smart, right? He just defended the whole game until he had a good gap to be able to play that in. Took a little bit of extra damage from the miner, but understood that it's okay as long as he can get his own push in.
Yeah, and I'm really excited to see a little bit more Electro Giant today. Obviously, they've both been back-to-back games of the same deck here from Gas because he lost the first one. We won't be seeing any more of that specific deck from him today. But I just enjoy that. Oh, that's going to be tough. That's going to be a Prince connection unless he gets the Skellies down. Yes, he does. It's just nice to see Electro Giant as it is a new card in the game, and I personally think it's very, very dominant. Yesterday, you were talking about some of its, you know, weaknesses and the fact that it is very, very slow. But as you guys saw there, once it does get on tower, it does a lot of damage. And here we go. Gas once again back to Electro Giant with Prince. I like it.
So we got a Mega Knight in 2 decks for Demas, and now we have 2 decks for Electro Giant on the other side. And honestly, it's not all that bad when you look at it for Gas. Just this matchup itself is pretty tough in the fact that the Mortar is a very, well, you know, is a very tanky structure that also deals with the troops behind the Electro Giant when it does get close. So what you said earlier, I spoke about how slow it is, right? This is one of those problems.
Yeah, and that was a beautiful, beautiful miner there from Demas. He sends the miner short, gets a lot of damage in on the tower, tanks for the Musketeer, and that is a lot of HP missing from the top right-hand side. 1280 to 1916.
And that royal delivery is great for the Prince as well. He does have the Skellies. He decided to go Valk here because of the cycle probably, but overall that Prince is going to have a very, very hard time trying to connect to the tower just because of how many troops can tank for it and really the low cost of the troops.
Yeah, I personally love this mortar deck. I mean, this is the one that I'm actually playing right now. It's the one that I was just talking about losing to. So we'll see how he sets up here. You see that mortar off to the far left-hand side, that musketeer up high. Musketeer cycled early on. That way you can't lightning all three. I think that's maybe part of the success that Demas is looking for. But as you saw right there, lightning only hits 2 targets.
Absolutely, it hits twice, and now look at this. He has the skellies with the delivery, and now if he wants, he has another mortar. He has a log ready to go again. It's just so hard for him to get through. But looking at this deck, he might have the same struggles he did last matchup, because now he does have to win with that Mega Knight Miner deck that we just saw him lose to E-Giant with.
Yeah, that's actually a really, really solid point you make there. It was fun watching this mortar deck kind of dominate Electro Giant, but now maybe caught in some rough matchups moving forward. Gas kind of reset, probably come back out with that same deck, maybe looking for that matchup specifically, because he knows exactly what his opponent's going to play for the next 2 games. That's one of the most interesting things that I kind of love about this tournament, Eric, is that if you go up 2-0 early on, that's great for you, but now your opponent knows exactly what they're going to see for the rest of their elimination games.
100%, and I'd be very surprised if Gas doesn't go back to this deck knowing the matchup he's going to receive. If he had trouble with the DPS that the first E-Giant deck created, now you're swapping out a Dark Prince for an actual Prince, which is even worse. So I'd expect to see this 100%. I'm not sure what the Gas's third deck is, but the important thing is to get to that game 5, then figure it out. If you know it has a bad matchup, it is what it is. Get to the game 5 and then see what you can make happen. Just first secure it, in my opinion.
Exactly. You know exactly what you're going to run into, and it looks like he's going right that way. We see the Goblin Cage cycled early. There's the Prince to get on top of the Miner. Demas is just looking at this going, all right, I'm going to have to make some magic happen here in game number 4 if I want to close out this set, or we'll be going to a game number 5, and like you said, Eric, none of us, including Demas, have any idea what that last deck is from Gas.
It's really a toss-up, and I hope and he hopes that it's not another E-Giant deck, because then he's in problems. And it very well could be. You've explained the format quite a lot, and for those maybe that are stopping by now, he can repeat 6 cards. So 6 cards, one of those could be E-Giant, and that's one of the flaws that the Mega Knight has, right? As strong as it is, the DPS is just not there.
Yeah, unless you're talking about splash damage, pulling everything together, or a Mega Knight getting on your tower, it really is rough when you talk about trying to take down tanks. So right now, Demas going hot and heavy at the bridge, trying to get a lot of damage in here early in single, and honestly, maybe not letting Gas put together a big push while we're in single, as Demas may have a little bit harder time defending there.
What Gas has to do is the same thing he already did against this deck, right? He took a lot of early damage. I think when it was in double elixir, one of his towers was down to 1100 or even 1000, but not to worry about it, because he knows that once he gets into his cycle, once he starts pushing, it's pretty much game over for Demas, and he's doing that again. He's recognizing what this matchup is all about, and it's very, very heads up play by him.
Yeah, and I don't know if I like the Miner this time to get on top of the Prince there. Yes, it does help out a bit, and maybe he gets a Bandit down here. Yeah, it's a nice Bandit to get back on offense. I just don't know if it was necessary, as the Bandit was going to be used to stop the Prince anyway. But here we go. Wall Breakers in on the left-hand side, Bandit up high, and to kind of get back to your point of what you were saying, Eric, yeah, Gas just needs to kind of sit back and hang out. 1479 on that top left tower. Because when he won with this deck with this, win condition in game number 2, it was when he played the Electro Giant. I think there was 1 minute and 30 left of the game, but that is getting really low on the left-hand side.
Yeah, now he needs to be careful, and I think there was a little bit of a misplay there with the Tornado. He needed to get that NATO onto all the troops, and these bats could be a big problem for him. He's getting out-cycled completely. He's going to have to NATO here or do something about this, because if everything connects, that is very, very, very close to tower down, and Demas could actually take this match. He sat back way, way too far, and the cycle was just not there for him. I expect to see something here come out, and I'm not seeing it.
Yeah, wow, you see Gas there putting out the well played, recognizing that he's in a lot of trouble right now. That Miner's probably going to come in right on top. Yes, it does, goes to the back. Prince gets sent back around, meets the Bomber there. Bats plus Mega Knight up high. Now coming late with the zap. Bat on tower. Wall breakers are in. He does stop it, Eric. He has a chance right now.
Yeah, this could be it for him. And I think it's all over. I definitely think this is all over. Game over for him.
Here we go. So Mega Knight coming across the bridge. Miner goes into the front of the tower. Bats up high. Finally gets that King Tower activation. Knight on top of the wall breakers. Ice Wizard is still there to slow. Somehow, Gas has survived. Demas feeling the pressure. Electro Giant crossing the bridge. Right now, Bats up high, but the Zap taking it off the board. Miner in up high, caught by the Ice Wizard. You know there's a Cajun cycle, doesn't need it. And Demas somehow stays alive and steals game number 4. 149 HP remains on that top left tower. My goodness, what a play. I have no idea how he was able to put together those defenses time after time after time. As you can see on the right-hand side, he leaked very little elixir, Eric. That was insane. I mean, I think you and I both thought it was game over with only like, what, 30 seconds left.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the problems when you don't have a big spell in your deck, right? You can't really finish off the game.
Yeah, 100%. You saw there the lightning not a factor this time around. As you can see, it was played 0 times in the bottom right-hand side there by Gas. But, you know, that was a must-win situation for him, Eric. You know, he had to pick up that win knowing he had a better matchup against that Mega Knight Wallbreakers deck, even though it almost slipped away from him. Now here in game number 5, we don't really know what to expect from Gas. We know exactly what Demas will be playing.
Yeah. And really, the good thing is that Demas understands which are the good matchups and which are the bad. As long as he can stay away from a very strong P.E.K.K.A Poison deck or another E-Giant deck, he should be okay here.
And we'll see if Demas decides to go Mega Knight for all 3 of his decks today. Zap plus Bats early from him. And as you can see, Gas Heal Spirit out. First time he's used that card today. And the favorite card of his, the Log.
I think it's one of the few times we've actually seen the Heal Spirit, right?
Yeah, we saw it maybe
mistaken.
in one game yesterday or something like that, but definitely hasn't been as popular as I thought it would be. Double wall breaker connection on the left-hand side with the Spear Goblins down. That's a huge mistake, and there's the Mega Knight again.
And I think you simply just can't cycle a Log knowing the deck that he has, right? That's very, I think, a misplay out of him starting off at the beginning, knowing that he has wall breakers. That's not a card you want to cycle at all.
And here we go, that Mother Witch getting a ton of piggies on the board.
Yeah.
Recruits going down that right-hand side. Should be a decent amount of damage in here early from Gas, maybe evening things up almost. Big push.
Absolutely. Those bats, as good as they usually are defending, definitely the only reason he got that much damage onto the tower. And it's not looking all that bad for Gas, but he needs to stop allowing all those wall breakers to connect.
Yeah, I feel like the biggest problem with Gas so far has just been misplays. He has the Log, he has the Heal Spirit, he has Spear Goblins. There's a lot of ways to make sure those wall breakers don't connect for how many times they've connected already.
It's just understanding the cycle mainly, right? And he knows that he has this deck. Yeah, he understands that really, like, his defenses aren't bad at all. The Log, like you said, the Log, the recruits, even the elite barbarians, right, can take care of everything. So just don't use it, play reactively, and then play your counter pushes with the Mother Witch onto the bats and everything else, and you should be okay.
Yeah, this is an interesting thing that we're going to be looking at for the rest of the game, is that Flying Machine. The Flying Machine coming out, as you saw, the Bat's really the best response to get on top of that. A Heal Spirit was locked, loaded, and ready to go for Gas to keep that Flying Machine on the board. These wall breakers are not going to connect with a nice Log plus E-Barbs, but that'll be an interesting thing coming forward, how that Flying Machine is going to be dealt with. The Bats will always be looked at for the Heal Spirit, and of course that Musketeer is a card that you might need on the back end for DPS.
He needs to be very, very careful with the way he uses his recruits. They should always be played on the bridge as soon as the Mega Knight is coming down on the other side of the bridge, because if you play them in the back, that Mega Knight doesn't actually die to all of them, as opposed to if you play them on the bridge when the Mega Knight is crossing, it does kill it.
Eric, really surprised there to see that Bandit drop so far back. The Flying Machine just connects on the left-hand side, gets a ton of shots in. Now, I recognize maybe not wanting to play the Bandit up high because it's going to die, but just needed to get something there to soak those Flying Machine shots, and now a ton of pressure both sides of the board. Can Demas survive?
I don't think he can, as long as he doesn't have enough elixir, in my opinion. Those hoggies are going to come out, and yes, he's tanking for it, but I think this is actually game over, and the front runner for this group goes down. And it could be the same reason we thought he was going to go through, because of that Mega Knight, is the reason that he's out. He was maybe a little bit too predictable, and they did their homework on him.
And you saw the great celebration there from Gas. Very excited for what felt like a comeback set. It really did, because it felt like that second win that he picked up was a game that he had to win, that he should have won, and he was behind for almost the entirety of that game. Some incredible defense at the end to turn it around, to bring you to a game 5. And then he just straight up outplayed him. He had some mistakes early on, but then was able to bring everything together at the end. And as you said, you know, Demas not eliminated from contention yet, but he definitely is not safe today.
Absolutely not. Demas now has the pressure on him. The good thing is he is an experienced player, and congrats to Gas. He's assured another day. And honestly, when you look at the bracket, I'm sure he wasn't as excited knowing that he was going to play probably one of the top prospects for this tournament, but definitely showed that, yeah, you may not know me, but you will know me, right?
Exactly. And in game number 1, it looked like, you know, Demas, all right, this is what we expect, just overrunning his opponent. He got the Electro Giant out once, but here in game number 2, the tides shift drastically with this Electro Giant push. You see him call out a good game early, recognizing he got the damage he needed, just needs to get the lightning in. You see a block coming down, but Gas comes back into this. Then we hop over to game number 3, a beautifully played matchup here by Demas.
Over and over again, we just saw Demas understand his decks, and I think it wasn't a problem of him playing bad in general. It was just the bad matchups. That one mortar match, when he actually got a decent winnable matchup, you saw how dominant he was. Unfortunately for him, it looks like Gas just really, like I said, did his homework on what to expect from Demas, and most of his decks matched up well.
And, you know, I've been waiting to see when we would see more Electro Giant, more Mother Witch, and there's that great celebration there from Gas, but he did a great job of using both of those new cards. Both of them were very dominant today. Obviously, the Electro Giant, maybe his new favorite win condition out there, playing it very, very clean here on day number 3. On the other side of it, Demas struggling with the wall breakers. That was the deck. That was his crutch. And we've seen that before in this tournament, Eric. One deck can do you dirty.
It's crazy because that's Demas's deck. That is literally the Mega Knight deck that he's known for. So it's so crazy to see that that's the one that he lost basically the match because of. And it could be the fact that it's not the deck for this meta. We've said it so many times, right? You need to adapt, and maybe he just went a little too comfort.
Yeah, you know, the very first deck that he played there on the bottom left-hand side of your screen, that's the deck that you see the Mega Knight the most in right now. At least that's what I've seen it the most in. You know, a couple cards maybe switched here, you know, in and out. But for the most part, that's the basic archetype, right? We're looking for dual lane pressure. We're looking for a lot of stop up front, a lot of power, a lot of tankage to get those hoggies behind. And he had a lot of success with it. Same with that mortar deck. Again, very on brand in meta right now. But then you go to that third one, something that's a little bit more comfort. And Eric, maybe just not up with the times.
Yeah, and now he's gonna have to hope that he can get a win with it later on, because if not, we're gonna be seeing Demas go home in the first round here. And he really put himself in a position where I think he thought it was gonna be easy enough for him to win with his deck, that now he needs to really understand that, look, these guys, I may not know them, but they definitely know how to play, and mentally kind of reset for that last match. I would even try and start off with that deck and just secure a win, try and get it out of the way, and then go something that I know is very, very good in this meta.
Yeah, I think that's a really good call. As we see here, Tsukuyomi and Burkan, both of them looking very closely at that first matchup as their set is coming up next. And one of them, or both of them, are going to have to play one of those two guys that we just saw. Obviously, Gas will play the winner, and Demas will play the loser, but they have to rock back those same 3 decks that each of them played respectively. So that's something that you have to think about as you move forward here in our bracket format, our double elimination bracket format. So right now, Tsukuyomi and Burkan, 2 guys that you and I don't know very well, but you know, the guys that we do know well have not had a ton of success so far here in the Gamestars tournament, which is again why you and I love that it's a qualifier and not just an invitational.
I love it. I absolutely love it, and I'm excited, man. Maybe they surprise us. Maybe this is the first time we see their name, and then this gives them the confidence to go into the CRL competitions, and we get to, you know, see them a little bit more. This is definitely a big step for all of these players to get their name out there. Tournaments like this, leagues like this, are very, very good for them. And look, I have no idea what to expect card wise, deck wise, anything, but I'm excited to get into it.
I know, you know, you and I on day one, we were still a little, we were familiarizing ourselves with the format still, and I like to kind of describe this as like an introduction to duels format, because like we said, you can have 6 of the same cards, but 2 of them have to change between every single deck, and that's a really great way to kind of start preparing your mind for strategizing against your opponents down the road, especially when you get into that second matchup, because you already know what their 3 decks are. That's when the strategy comes in. That's when all the bluffing and the gamesmanship comes in. Are they going to rock back their worst deck first? That becomes a really interesting conversation that I really love to have here with GameStars.
It is, and it's definitely something, you know, get your feet wet with, having to make some changes, not being able to repeat the same exact deck over and over again. And that's the beauty of duels, and that's the beauty of this. Not only are you getting some tournament experience, but you're also getting that little bit of duels touch. So it could definitely open the doors for a lot of these players.
Nice King Tower
and good
activation
there.
Yeah, it's not as easy as it looks, honestly. Like, it seems very, very simple, but you have to hit that timing perfectly. And it's something that you should definitely practice, as Electro Spirit has become very, very popular in this meta, mainly in Expo 3.0.
That's definitely one of the downfalls of the Electro Spirit, right? You can't just cycle it like you can every other Spirit, every other 1 elixir card, because that's what happens. If you do cycle it at the bridge, if you're just trying to get in rotation, they could activate King Tower, and it puts you in a position where, depending on your deck, could be a lot of trouble for you.
Yeah, and it's a pretty fascinating thing about that card, because it does feel very powerful when you talk about it running into something like a Skarmy or Bats, or, you know, anything that has a lot of bait. So here we go, Fireball out. That Fisherman's going to come down a little lower than I thought it would. Maybe wanted to go higher, trying to get that, what, King Tower activation or something. I'm not sure exactly what the plan was there. Isn't it usually better to go up into the other side, Eric?
Yeah, the reason that he actually did that is because he does have King Tower activated, so he wanted 3 towers hitting it at the same time.
Got it.
That's why he put it that low, so that it would be in range of all 3 and get that extra damage in on him.
We literally just had that conversation about why it was important to activate the King Tower. It's okay, it's early.
Yeah, it's early for us. It's not usually something that we see either, though, so you are right. Usually against RG, the King Tower is basically useless to have activated. He did a pretty heads up play. It's not going to change that much, to be honest, when you're playing something that tanky, but that Fisherman definitely was not what he was looking for.
Yeah, that's tough. Now that Giant Skeleton going to get pulled away, and now we're going to see Lonely Star, or as we know him, Tsukuyomi, doubled down here on this bridge push with the Royal Giant behind. Going to meet a Mother Witch. Mother Witch is going to need some help.
Yeah, it's definitely not enough to just get that down. Go to Evar's there a little bit late, and the good thing is that Mother Witch is spawning those Hoggies, which are tanking for the Elite Barbarian, and it actually will do a lot of damage. Even though it's only 1, look how much damage it does onto that Giant Skelly.
It is insane how quickly that Mother Witch can just kind of like build a snowball or an avalanche of damage downhill. It feels like she's so, you know, kind of easily controllable, spellable off the board, but then the next thing you know it, she's tanking for Hogs. Hogs are tanking for her, and here we go. Royal Giants meet each other at the bridge. Obviously, the Royal Giant here of Tsukuyomi not meeting as much resistance, but the top of your screen, those Zappies aren't going to be able to do it. That's tower down.
It is, and that was a very heads-up play by him to go RG on the bridge. He understood that Fisherman was out of cycle. Musketeer, which is the high damage DPS, was also just taken out by the Fireball. So good heads-up play. I like the overall gameplay that I saw there from both players. I didn't see a lot of mistakes. It was just a pretty tough match overall.
Yeah, Burkan there did a good job of taking advantage of Tsukuyomi's Fisherman, as we saw the Fisherman maybe not doing what Tsukuyomi needed it to do regularly, pulling that Royal Giant up closer to that attack. A lot of shots in. Nice plays here. We see 3 Royal Giants coming out on both sides of the board, but a lot more success to Burkan. And then we see there the last card that was not played, of course, the Earthquake from Tsukuyomi.
Yeah, there's just nothing to really earthquake, right? There's no structure, there's nothing there. It wasn't needed, and overall I think it was just a very well played match. Understood when to go in, and that's a very, very big part of playing RG. We've seen a lot of people say that RG is pretty easy to play and all this, but how many times have we seen it lose just because they throw away pushes? They don't really understand when to go in and not. And Mortar, even though it seems like it's not a good matchup, if you play that Mortar correctly, as you probably know, it's actually pretty decent against RG.
Yeah, you can have a pretty nice matchup here. Looks like, you know, same thing again. RG, Giant Skeleton here, top of your screen. There's the Electro Spirit coming out to get on top of that Spear Goblin, which will get taken off the board by that Giant Skeleton bomb. But that E-Barb in Eric for some big shots and a great fireball. Miner still on the tower. You can see right there, Tsukuyomi takes a look at the camera and goes, what just happened?
Yeah, he's definitely not happy about that. And this is the type of Mortar deck that makes the RG struggle, because now you can play Mortar completely defensively and get away with just minor chipping away. If it's a Mortar deck that you actually depend on the Mortar for damage, that's when RG has matchup. But this style deck is so strong against RG.
And you see right there, Spear Goblins come out to bait the -2 trade with, of course, the Musketeer coming down. Bats out here. He's not going to send in the Miner. Doesn't really need to. Rather tick to 10 first. So now a Fisherman cycled in the back as we see Tsukuyomi set up what will be most likely not a huge push, as there's still 30 seconds remaining. And now we see the push starting in the back.
Here we go. This is basically his only chance, but I don't see it really getting anywhere. The Elite Barbarians do enough damage, and that was actually a very heads-up play with the Miner to make sure that it's pushing it back and delaying even more on that push that that Tsukuyomi is trying to get in. Right now he has another cycle completely ready to go, another Mortar if he wants. He can fireball this if he'd like to. He can Elite Barbs that RG as soon as this Giant Skelly dies, which it should go down any second. I would have gone fireball there just to get rid of everything. I think it was even a better play. He decides to do it the other way around, but overall I think it worked out well.
It's pretty fun for me to just listen to you call the match and then watch Tsukuyomi respond, because he is a very, very emotional player. As you can see how frustrated he is with how these interactions are going. Ethan playing this really, really perfectly, Eric. He broke down that sequence. I'd say, as you said, he probably gets an A instead of an A+ there. The fireball comes out a little bit later as opposed to earlier, instead of getting on top of the Zappies and the Musketeer, but still mitigates a lot of damage, and Tsukuyomi still very unhappy with the situation that he's in.
Yeah, and this is just gonna die as well, right? You put that down because you needed to defend it, but now you don't even have a push going. He can fireball this if he wants to. There's a fireball, and slowly it's just gonna end up slipping away. As soon as I saw this matchup, I already knew that there was no chance that RG was gonna get on tower.
Yeah, and it's kind of fascinating because, you know, a lesser Mortar player would look at this and go, dude, he's got Royal Giant, Giant Skeleton, and Earthquake. Like, what am I gonna do? Well, this is what you do. You saw Eat very, very well the way he sequenced his defenses. He never tried to force things on offense, and that's one of the biggest problems you can do, right? On that last defensive push, if he drops those E-Barbs in the wrong place and they go down to that Giant Skeleton bomb, we're looking at a game over. But instead, that's Burkhand 2 up, 2 down.
2 up, 2 down, and matchups don't always look the way they play, right? Like you just said, the Giant Skelly RG Earthquake seems so dangerous for it, and I learned that over time. Igor at the beginning, when he was coming into the team, he told me, look, I want to play the Mortar, and I would look at the deck pool against the players he was up against, and I would say, look, he plays a lot of RG, he plays a lot of this, that. He's like, yes, that's what I'm looking for. I want him to do that. And until I actually saw him play it and understood the way it's played, that's when you realize that matchups on paper aren't the same as when you see them actually interact and the cycles and everything. So very, very good decks out of Birkin right now.
Yeah, and Eric, I think that actually kind of even adds on to the point that you made yesterday when we were talking about, and even this morning when we were talking about the kind of the lack of success of Golem here at GameStars and kind of how dominant it is on the Grand Challenge boards and the ladder boards. And it's just because when you're at this high of a level, you're not going to run into people defending in, you know, predictable ways. You're not going to be able to just reset every single time and just send that golem down the lane and they're just going to let you kind of bash their head against a wall. They're going to change. They're going to change things up. They're going to change up how they, you know, defend their sequence there. They're going to change up how much offensive pressure they put on when they decide to reset and restart their cycle. There's just so much more patience and thought that goes into things that make, as you said, matchups that usually on paper should go one way kind of not go that way. You got to throw that piece of paper out the window when you talk about the best players in the world.
Absolutely. It's all about how you play it and understanding the archetype. And obviously when those paper matchups matter is when the players aren't as comfortable with how to play it, right? But when you do see players of this level and you understand that they know how to play the decks, that paper means absolutely nothing. And this is something I didn't expect, that Goblin Hut.
Yeah, Goblin Hut with Mother Witch here, and you know, I've seen some weird combinations out there, but I'm not going to do myself dirty and try to predict what this is quite yet. Mother Witch plus Fireball gets that hog on the tower there from Burkan. You know, Burkan has been playing some really, really clean Royale, man, through these first 2 games and obviously through the first 45 seconds of this one. A lot of great decision-making, and honestly, he's never gotten too overzealous and found himself in a position where he didn't have Elixir to defend.
Seeing his gameplay, actually, I'm very, very impressed. Out of everything we've seen today, including Dimas and including all the matches that we saw, I think he's played the best.
Wow, you see there the thanks coming out. Fisherman cycled in the back. Electro Giant already on the tower. Tsukiyami saying good luck, but my friend, this is game 3. You do not want your opponent to have any luck whatsoever. 12:08 remaining on that top left tower with a baby dragon sitting in the void. Only thing to get on top of it are those zappies.
The only thing I don't like, the only thing I don't like that Sugiyami is doing here is that he played the same deck again, right? And you have the advantage that you haven't played 2 of the decks yet, and you're showing him the deck that he already knows exactly what cards are coming in. I think you should have taken the risk. You shouldn't show him exactly what he's up against, because as soon as he saw that Earthquake at the beginning, he knows, okay, he's playing the same deck again. I know exactly what cards are in it. I've played against it twice. Let me adjust my cycle, even if I don't have a great matchup. So I think that was a little bit of a mishap, and that's on getting used to the format.
For sure, and that's, you know, a really solid point you make to why people or players need coaches and analysts and strategists and all that. He's got 3 decks in his pool. You know, and he can keep Burkan guessing. The one thing that he can't do, or shouldn't do, is just allow him to know exactly what his matchup is, and that's why you saw him so confidently put down that Electro Giant in the first push. Why you see him doing it again right now is just because he knows exactly what he's facing up against. So now everything being cycled to stop this Royal Giant from getting on tower. A beautiful Fireball comes in. Very, very little damage on that tower. Beautiful mitigation from Burkan.
Beautiful, and on top of that, he gets more damage himself. He understood that the E-Giant was not only going to tank for the Giant Skelly, but it was going to push it back because of how heavy it was, and that gave absolutely no cover to the Royal Giant. He's playing very, very well.
Yeah, and that's a great point you make, because that's something that you might look at and you're wondering, why is he using that Electro Giant as a tank for all this? But also you look at the damage that the Electro Giant is doing. It's almost like a giant skeleton bomb slowly ticking down the amount of damage it does to those DPS troops behind the Royal Giant. But still, 582, 562. Ethan needs to get another Electro Giant on that tower. Tsukiyami has a chance here to steal this game.
He definitely does, and it's all because of that one bad play that he just made. He messed up completely there by going Fireball onto tower instead of playing that that Goblin Hut that we see there, but he's gonna take it because of how much damage it does once it does get to the tower.
What a beautiful high Goblin Hut. Makes that Fisherman redirect instead of pulling the Electro Giant away from the Princess Tower. The Fisherman takes a long stroll all the way around the river on the bridge and walks to that Goblin Hut instead of pulling the Electro Giant back. Burkan playing basically perfectly through 3 games. Tsukuyomi going to have to go and see how he's going to do in the elimination bracket, but Burkan going to face off against Gas, who we saw in that very first matchup, coming up next. Eric, this was really clean stuff from our player from Turkey.
Absolutely. I think this was the best clash we've seen possibly in all the days that we've been here, right? Maybe Lucas was up there with him, but I saw almost no mistakes and very, very, very good plays. The only mistake I could point out was that Fireball that was the reason that match got so close at the end. But other than that, every match was completely dominated by him. He played different type of decks. I really like what I saw of Burkan, and I'm actually very curious to see how he does moving on in this competition.
Me too, man. It was actually really a treat to watch him play. His decision making was really incredible. This is that high Goblin Hut I was just talking about. That Electro Giant just strolling on through right to the tower, and that was made by just a brilliant heads-up play. That's all it was. So Burkan, as you can see right there, 3 up, 3 down. Tsukuyomi on the other side. Eric, a little bit of what you were talking about. We only saw 1 deck, and while this may, fare well for him in his second matchup of the day, maybe he should have kept Burkan guessing a bit more here.
Definitely, I agree with you on that. It's like I said, you already know, you've showed your deck twice. Burkan knows what he's up against. He understands how to play it because he's not only seen it, but he knows the way you play the actual deck, right? Because we've seen the same deck in different people's hands and they play it differently. He's already played against you twice, so he knows your tendencies, he knows everything. I think I would have taken the risk. Maybe on the other hand, he didn't want to show decks because he still does have to play against Dimas, but I would not give up a set just yet, right? The only good thing I see here is that deck could be beaten by Dimas's minor deck that he was struggling with a lot, right? It does have a Bard Barrel, it does have an Electro Spirit, but it has no structure, and it only has that Musketeer for DPS. So overall, I think Dimas is a little bit happy knowing that I could beat that deck.
Yeah, and what I thought was interesting there with Burkan's deck was that he has kind of triple spell in every single deck. One of them was just straight up triple spell. The other one, we had a heal spirit and a royal delivery as opposed to a third spell. So a guy that loves fireball, loves log, and obviously loves to control the game defensively with his use of those small troop/spell cards, something that I think that Gas is going to have to look for here in this next matchup. And that's what we're going to be seeing next. Gas and Burkan facing off in a BO5. Our winners from the first 2 matchups of the day. Obviously, the winner of this will go on through to our international finals. That's right. They get to sit back, hang out for the next couple weeks until May, where we are going to be finding out who's going to walk away with that lion's share of $30,000. Burkan and Gas looking to join Lucas from day 1 and Sokol from day 2. Who will it be here in Group C? And of course, at the bottom of our screen, Team Liquid, formerly of Team Liquid Academy, Dimas, and of course, Tsukuyomi. Tsukuyomi had a lot of trouble there in his set, though.
He did, and Dimas definitely showed us a little bit more and a little bit more comfortable as well with his deck choice than Tsukuyomi. Tsukuyomi doesn't seem like that RG deck is something that he's very comfortable with, so he's gonna need to prepare a whole different game plan. He already knows. The good thing is that he knows all 3 of Dimas's decks. Dimas only knows 1 deck out of him, but the important thing right now is this matchup that we're gonna see that gives someone a place in that finals.
Yeah, that's a big position to take, and obviously not wanting to have to go face off against third place. Big win here. So Burkan, Gas facing off against one another in a BO5. These are the decks that these gentlemen ran and won with, obviously having to win with 3 decks to fall into this part of the bracket. You can see there, though, Gas had to go back to those first 2 decks twice to pick up his W's, going back and forth with, of course, Dimas in his first set. Burkan, dominant through 3, 100% win rate with all of these decks. And as I was saying, Eric, surprised to see the Goblin Hut, but Fireball and Log in every single one of these decks seems like a guy that really loves the way that those 2 cards work together.
He does, but I'm looking at this, and if I'm taking a set of decks, it's Gas's decks. All of his decks have the Goblin Cage, NATO, Ice Wizard with the Baby Dragon. We know one of his decks is RG. We know that Mortar deck isn't gonna fare as well against the Lightning, so it is looking pretty tough in my opinion here for Burkan on the deck choice and the deck matchup, but he did play phenomenally.
Yeah, and while Burkan may have looked to have cleaner gameplay through all 3 of his games, Gas had some phenomenal moments of incredible defense and also just sticking to it, right? Sticking through some of those moments of adversity, looking like there was no way he'd come out on top, never giving up, surviving with just over 100 HP on his tower. And that speaks for itself also. Maybe not as clean as Burkan, but never giving up here was Gas with a massive Electro Giant push here at the bridge. There are the E-Barbs. Will we see a Mortar? No, he's going to go Miner up high to catch that Dark Prince. This is a lot of trouble. That's way too much damage in. That's tower down.
Yeah, that's tower, and he needs to still defend it, because if not, that's 3 towers down. What a great start out of Gas here, and it's a little bit of what I just talked about. The matchups are not as good as he just had, so he's gonna have to play very, very, very well to actually take this match.
Yeah, and you saw the way that sequence kind of went, right? You saw the log early on, the E-Barbs come down low to try to deal with that Electro Giant as fast as possible, but obviously the Electro Giant zapping does a lot of damage there. The Miner goes up high to try to catch the charge of the Dark Prince, which it does, but then gets cleaned off the board almost instantaneously, and the Goblin Brawler plus the Dark Prince still alive takes the E-Barbs off the board, and there we go, log to the center of the map. Ethan,
yeah, he knows it's over. He knows it's over because, let me remind you, on that push, it wasn't even double elixir, right? He didn't even have lightning. If he had lightning there to take care of those E-bars, there is nothing you could do. And as time goes on, you know that lightning would come in. And I mean, I don't love it. I don't love just giving up the match because anything can happen. Mistakes are made, right? Try and force a mistake out of him. But I do understand maybe he's just trying to move on to the next match, get this going, understanding that, look, odds are I'm not going to win this. Let me just forget about this match like it never happened and keep going.
Yeah, because it can be incredibly frustrating to sit there and try and think, oh my gosh, maybe there is a way to come back, and then you find yourself even more tilted in a match that you were still going to lose because you tried. So Burkan maybe just trying to reset, as you said, Eric, step away from his phone for a moment, think about the mistakes that he made, which was probably just a bit of an overspend early on, but also just a really, really rough matchup when you talk about how are E-Barbs going to stop a Dark Prince with a Goblin Brawler and an Electro Giant, and I think the answer is they can't.
They can't. They absolutely can't. But even more frustrating on top of that is the fact that he knows he has another Electro Giant deck coming on up. So I'm not really sure what the plan is here, because even if he decides to change decks, right, it's not really going to do all that much. The deck change is what? To another two decks that might struggle just the same way. He has an Electro Giant deck of his own, but that Goblin Hug gives up a lot of value onto the Lightnings coming out of Gas, and the RG deck will probably never get any damage with the Goblin Cage, Ice Wizard, Baby Dragon, Tornado combination that we saw yesterday a bunch.
Yeah, and today we've really seen the Electro Giant shine. It's been played more today than it has in any other day of competition, and to more success than almost any other win condition out there, and a big reason for that is Gas.
Absolutely, and he's going to repeat the Mortar deck. I'm not sure if he's just trying to get rid of it, you know, say, look, I really need to win with this at some point, so let me just try and get it done here. It doesn't match up well against any of the decks I'm going against, but maybe I can make something happen. If he does lose this matchup though, I think it's over.
Yeah, this is a very, very tough situation to be in when you talk about matchups. And Eric, you said that kind of coming into this set, we see Gas taking a look at the camera here. Ethan setting up Mortar at the bottom of your screen, Gas at the top with that Royal Recruit split, and of course the high flying machine to take out those bats, get on top of that Mortar. Fireball out of cycle, bats out of play, Spear Goblins down low. You see that delivery helping out with the flying machine.
The delivery is definitely going to help a lot in this matchup when you go against a flying machine, but the biggest thing that Gas has to do here is just continue to bait that fireball with hogs on the bridge or something, a Night Witch next to a Mother Witch as well. Because if he can just protect that flying machine over and over again, he's gonna win this match. Those mortars are not gonna do anything, and I'm sure you know that, playing as much mortar as you do. When you have a mortar deck and on the other side there's a flying machine on the bridge and you already used the fireball, you're kind of just, you know, giving up a full mortar.
Yeah, it's a really, really tough spot to be in, especially, you know, when you're talking about baiting out that fireball. A Royal Delivery does not take the flying machine off the board if it's at 100% HP. And of course, the bats very easily taken off the board by something like a Heal Spirit, which of course Gas is going to be having locked, loaded, and ready to go to catch those bats. So yeah, really tough matchup here. And Eric, I think you kind of pinpointed one of the worst things about that matchup, which is just the flying machine and also how squishy the troops are from Ethan. And the Mother Witch being in the tank for Gas as well. Just a lot of rough things to deal with here for Burkan at the bottom of the screen.
It's not gonna be easy at all. But on the other end, I need to see Gas try to split that Mother Witch up a little bit. I don't like that flying machine because you need the fireball to hit the flying machine. It's more important to have the flying machine alive than it is the Mother Witch. Even though it's gonna spawn up those hoggies, it's not as important in my opinion, as long as it's very, very well protected. It worked out very well for him though, so I'm gonna go ahead and be quiet here.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised it got as much damage as it did. That Mother Witch just hangs back, somehow turns a few of those troops into the piggies, gets the tower down to 1956, 1532 at the top right-hand side of your screen. But as we get deeper into double and triple elixir, it's going to be really hard for Ethan to deal with these troops and these large bridge pushes. Royal Delivery most likely going to come down on that right-hand side. And there it is, cast dropped on time. Mother Witch going to get a few bats on the board. Yes, she does.
Yeah, the problem there was that the delivery was dropped on the elite barbarian instead of on the... Oh my god, look at the left-hand side tower. He completely forgot to defend. He was attack, and look at it. His tower is at 700.
That is an insane amount of damage that came in, I think, from... Was it one of the E-barbs?
One barb.
Not 100.
Yeah, one.
Yeah, that... 671 now to 1588. A massive shift in momentum here for Ethan. And honestly, Eric, this could be like the moment of the matchup between these two guys, because you were talking about how much this deck was going to struggle against what Gas has left to offer.
Yeah, if Ethan can actually pull a win here, that is so big for him. The problem that I'm telling you here is, yes, it worked out that one time where I said that the Mother Witch is not as important as a flying machine, but look how much that mortar is dealing with everything, right? And the only way for him to take out that mortar efficiently is with the flying machine. He needs to understand that he needs to adjust and make sure he keeps that flying machine alive and gets the fireball onto the Mother Witch. These hoggies just don't do as much damage as they seem they do.
Yeah, it really does seem like that's been kind of the key to victory that Gas forgot about, was getting that flying machine protected instead of just allowing the fireball to come out on top of the flying machine every single time. And there we go. Once again, now Law going to come down on the left-hand side, chipping away. Not going to pull the trigger on the Miner. Why would he? Because those E-barbs were cycled so soon. Miner goes into the back of the tower. There it is. Going to get a few shots in. Royal Delivery dropped. Excuse me, Royal Recruits dropped just a second late. And this is a pretty shocking turn of events here when you talk about just mental mistakes.
This is it. This is the flying machine. It's there. That is a win condition. I'm telling you, that flying machine is a win condition. Could change everything. When you keep it alive, look how much it forces out. This is what he didn't realize so early on into the game.
Eric, that's it. That's gonna do it. Oh my gosh, 41 HP.
He's lucky he ran out, you know, the time ran out, because imagine he did that over time instead of trying to get that Mother Witch to be the win condition. It's exactly what I was saying. As soon as he baited that fireball to the Mother Witch, look at the push he was able to get going.
Yep. Yeah, it was a massive push. Right-hand side of the board you saw there at the end. Royal Recruits, plus 2 flying machines, plus everything else on the board for the person that ends up losing the game. I mean, that was a very, very close matchup. 41 HP remaining on the top left-hand side. And honestly, if it wasn't for that one mistake defensively early on, forgetting about that elite barbarian, we might see a different outcome here. But Eric, that was just the situation you talked about. There needed to be a recognition sooner to really utilize those flying machines. And as you said, give up on that Mother Witch that just wasn't getting it done.
It's part of learning. Mid-game adapting is just as important as anything else in this game. You have to understand the macro, you have to understand the micro and everything, but the best players in the world adapt mid-game. It's how fast you can realize what is actually going to cause him problems. What do I need to do to turn this game around? And he realized it, but it was way too late. There was 10 seconds left in the game.
Yeah, and it's such an important part of being the best in the world, Eric. It really is when you talk about that mid-game adjustment, because we've seen it so many times before. We've even talked about it here at GameStars, mainly just because we were talking about Igor, and you know, when that guy has 500 HP remaining on a tower, that's like you and I having a completely healthy tower. You have to make those mid-game adjustments, and we've all been in those scenarios where we're playing against someone, and you start to feel the game slip out of your fingers halfway through, and it's because they're making better mid-game adjustments than you.
Absolutely. Igor, Morton, all the best players that we've seen historically do it all the time. And then we saw other players who, instead of adjusting mid-game, they wait to see how you play. And that's another strategy that you can do. If you're not as accustomed to, or you don't feel as comfortable, right? You could go like probably the best player of all, well, not probably, the best player of 2020, who is Ruben. He literally sits back, waits to see exactly how you play a deck, and then pounces as soon as he knows what you're gonna do next. So there's two different ways of looking at the game, and you just got to figure out which one is best for you.
Yeah, one of the most fascinating things in Clash Royale is watching Ruben play and kind of watching him pick apart his opponent mentally for maybe 3 minutes of a game while he gets very, very little damage in, and then one push, you'll just see everything fall apart, and it's because it's so perfectly sequenced, because Ruben knows everything that that person is planning on doing. That is actually one of my favorite things, period, in Clash Royale. So here we go. 2-3-0-4, bottom left-hand side to 2208 on the top left. Very little action happening, as we are just about to get into double elixir. Royal Giant, bottom of your screen, top of your screen. No surprise here from Gas.
And just how we spoke about the last game that he needs to win with that mortar deck, this is the only match that he has a chance to win, in my opinion, if we're talking about Gas. Gas needs to win this match because the last one is that E-Giant deck, and those recruits die so quickly to an E-Giant deck that he needs to win this and get this deck out of the way, or I don't see him getting that third win.
Yeah, that's a great point that you make, kind of looking into the future here for Gas. This is a must-win, obviously, just because you want to win, but more so because of the matchup that he's going to put himself in down the road. So here we go. Flying Machine up high again. Fireball out on those recruits. And, of course, the Flying Machine, we'll see if Gas starts to utilize that Flying Machine as he did towards the end of Game 2.
Yeah, I hope he does, and I hope he realizes how strong it is. The only reason I think he's trying to get value out of that Mother Witch over and over again is because this is not a Hoggies deck, right? That's the only troop that's really going to get onto the tower as a win condition, if you want to call it that, the Mother Witch. But he needs to realize that that's not really necessary to win one of these games. It's happened so many times, right? Me and you have casted so many games where actually it ends up being those recruits that get the chip damage, the Flying Machine that he can't defend that gets onto tower. You don't really need the one that looks like the win condition to be the win condition.
Exactly, because a lot of times the best thing that you can style of deck that Gas is running is give so much pressure to your opponents that, as you were just saying, Eric, those Royal recruits kind of just walk all the way down the lane, one side and then the other. They get a few stabs in, and then before you know it, you're down a few hundred or several hundred HP. So that's at least the plan right now for Gas. A lot of damage coming in on that top left-hand side. Now we see that Mother Witch taken off the board. Royal Giant, though, very, very healthy with nothing there to stop it. Nothing but trouble here. That's just tower down, man.
Yeah, this is it. The only thing he has a little bit of an issue here is probably that Flying Machine, but there's just nothing to add pressure onto in time to force out a log, to force out anything, and that's GG. And now he knows that at some point he's gonna need to win with a recruits deck that has no structure at all and no forcible, you know, defenses onto an E-Giant deck. I'm not sure how that's gonna happen. I would like to see him try right away, because look, you know you're gonna have to do it, you know what's coming up, but I just don't see it possible.
I don't know how he's going to do it either. Like when you talk about on paper matchups, as you just said, no building Royal recruits going into an Electro Giant, which is what Burkhan has to run here, as he's won 2 games already. Gas in a lot of trouble. Now, if there's anything that Gas has shown us, is that he's never out of it. You can't even count him out, even with 194 HP difference. You can't count him out. But this is a very, very brutal matchup. And I'm trying to think of where things went wrong for Gas in that last game, Eric.
I think it was just the same thing that happened in the previous match. He kept baiting the fireball onto the Flying Machine. That cannot happen. You need to realize how strong it is, and how much it, not only, maybe it's not going to get that much tower damage, but it forces out so much out of your opponent to deal with it that it allows everything else to get to the tower, and he hasn't realized that just yet.
Yeah, that's a point that you'll hear some of the best bait players in the world make. Something that we touched on a little bit yesterday was just, you know, just because that rocket's going to come out every single time, or just because that log is going to come out every single time, doesn't mean that you stop playing the cards that bait out the rocket or the log, because you need them out of cycle to have success.
Exactly. And this is already starting to... I don't really love the NATO there. I understand what he was trying to do. He was trying to get all that radius take care of that, but he's gonna have to play something down, or he's just gonna lose the tower, I guess. Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah, you see the wow come out from him. A bit of an overspend. I'm surprised. You know, it was really just the log that kind of to stop the Prince that was like an okay decision. As you said, Eric, that NATO coming in was a big mistake. Now we see the Electro Giant come down in response here from Gas with only 12 remaining on that tower. Ethan in trouble early.
I think it's going to be very hard for him to get back into this. We know there's lightning on the top deck. And I'm trying to see what he's actually going to do here. The one positive side out of this is the fact that he does have that Goblin Hut. But overall, it might just be too much damage too early on for him to actually be able to come back into this game.
Yeah, I like that Bomber played on the right-hand side to take the Goblin Hut off the board just a little bit faster. Prince will take the Ice Wizard off and get no stab in. Good job.
Yeah, that's actually very key, because it looked like it wasn't gonna come to anything, right? That Prince looked like, look, it's not really gonna do much, but to take off such a defensive key troop off the board for free, basically, because we know that he used that Prince originally to defend. So he just got extra value out of it, and it's not looking all that bad anymore, but he needs to make this defense.
So here we go, another high Goblin Hut off the right-hand side. No Bomber cycle there to look for it. Lightning comes down instead. Now that Electro Giant going to walk onto the tower. Lightning will pull it back. Electro Giant most likely still going to get a little bit of damage. Yes, it does. One zap.
One zap, one big zap, because it does a lot of damage. And that was a kite that I don't even think he expected to work out that way, but it worked out really nicely for him.
Yeah, it works out really well for him. Brings that right-hand tower down to 1797. 1705 on the left-hand side. Gas firmly in control here. Happy to just keep playing defense, resetting these pushes, and then just getting lightning value when and where he can on the other side of the board.
The problem is, in all this, it's looking great. Like I said, he has lightning, so he just gets a lot of lightning value out of all this. But you win this match, and then what do you do with the recruits deck, right? Like, now what?
Yeah, that's a really good point that you make. And Gas, you know, recognized what you were talking about. He switches things up and goes for the better matchup here in game number 4, trying to stay alive. That's the most important thing, right? Staying alive. And he will do just that here, most likely in game number 4. Fireball comes out to get that Electro Giant down, but now an ocean of Elixir coming across the bridge with only 5 in response. Tower going to go down here. Eric, game number 5, Electro Giant versus Royal Recruits. How do you survive? What would you do? What would you tell your player, being a former coach? How do you get out of this matchup, man?
You need to keep those flying machines alive. Stop trying to use the Mother Witch. The Mother Witch is not even that useful in the matchup that we're about to see, right? There's not a lot of little squishy troops. Force out the Fireball onto the Mother Witch. That is your only chance. If you can protect those flying machines, get a good value out of them. He's gonna have to use the tornadoes onto the Royal Recruits once he's trying to actually attack with that E-Giant to get everything together. But you need to space out the flying machine and keep that away. It's your only real damage dealer that he cannot kill. He has a Fireball. He doesn't have lightning, which is a positive thing for him. So he just needs to get good spacing and not try to do too much.
Yeah, exactly. Don't get too overzealous. Spacing out that flying machine, making sure that if you are going to get everything NATO'd together, that flying machine is probably the hardest card to pull in with that NATO. And if they are going to pull in that flying machine, they're going to have to stretch and leave something else on the board. So, you know, the flying machine has been something we've talked about so much in this matchup between Gas and Burkan, and that's just because it feels like it's been the one card that he has not been giving enough respect to that could really lean this match in his favor. There you go. Fireball is out of play. Flying machine up high. Good job. Good start. Now do that for the next 5 minutes.
Exactly. That's exactly what you have to do. He played that very well. Bad placement on the Spear Goblins. He could have just done that same thing and put all 3 on one side to take care of that earlier. But overall, that's exactly what he's going to have to do. He was able to get the Goblin Cage, the Goblin Hut off the board and force a Baby Dragon, all because of one troop.
Yeah, crazy though to find himself 700 HP down already on that left-hand side with only 4 cards played here by Burkan, and that 4th card just came out. So all on the back of a Goblin Hut and a Baby Dragon do we find that tower down to 1758. Lowest tower of Burkan, of course, in the same lane at 2295. Now we see the Flying Machine cycle towards the right-hand lane. Gonna meet a Goblin Hut there.
It is, and I'm not sure. Yeah, that was pretty decent NATO out of him. He's now not going to be able to push though, because he needs that NATO, in my opinion, to get the right push in and to actually get value out of everything. So this is very smart out of Burkan to just go Baby Dragon, get a little extra chip, and slowly he's chipping away 1,000 damage off Baby Dragons.
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, that chip damage is really paying off. He pumps the brakes there, doesn't get overzealous, gets some more damage in here. Hoggy's going to come in, and more Fireball damage and Mother Witch damage. So right now, playing pretty dang perfectly is Burkan at the bottom of your screen. Gas still hasn't been able to get his recruits down. There they are. So now maybe a Electro Giant going to come out from Burkan.
Yeah, and it comes down to what we spoke about, right? The beginning was perfect. He Mother Witch, forced out a Fireball, and then for some reason he decided to go Flying Machine instead of Mother Witch, and now he's in a weird cycle. He took so much damage because that Fireball got onto the Flying Machine and couldn't force out anything from Burkan, and now he's taking a lot. Whoa, he's taking a lot more damage than I expected. He should have over defended a little bit. I'm not sure why he didn't when he had that much lead.
Yeah, and honestly, he got lucky too, because he was able to NATO in that that Heal Spirit perfectly in sync with the Baby Dragon Belch to take it off the board, or else everything on the right-hand side for Gas would have come back to life. And this is kind of Gas's MO, right? A guy that you think might be out of it, but in the final moments of the game, he roars back into it. And this is a huge push again. Those are all very, very well protected up front. E-Barbs are going to be on the tower. Flying Machine behind, going to get taken off the board. Gas, a little tilt to the head there, recognizing he didn't get quite what he wanted out of it, but still very much in this game.
He needs to actually get something going here, Burkan, before it's too late. I don't like the recruits played like that, because now they're all in the radius. It doesn't force out anything else from him. A Fireball is going to do enough there, and that's game over. Yeah.
Wow. What a beautiful sequence there by Burkan. You can see Gas trying to walk it off. Feels like that was probably stolen from him. Eric, where did that go wrong? You started saying it instantly before the game even slipped through his finger. You go, I don't like the way those recruits are played. Talk me through those final few moments.
You can't play recruits like that onto either a E-Giant or a Mega Knight. It's just the two things you cannot do when you play recruits. Why? Because they all, as they walk forward, they all bunch up together, right? If you play them on the bridge, they're all separated. They're not all going to get hit by the radius. So that was the mistake there. Once you put them like that, they're all in that E-Giant radius, and with a Fireball combination, they're all going to die. So that was the one mistake he made that he hadn't made at all throughout any of that match. And it at the end just cost him.
Yeah, and here we go. Overrun in game number 1 was Burkan. That was the one that he basically just stepped away from his phone. And Eric, it ends up being the correct decision. He's able to shake it off, able to come back around here in game number 2. He plays some great defense here on the right-hand side. Somehow, some way, that Barb gets there in time. 41 HP remaining to 608. Gas cannot believe it, as that was a huge game, a pivotal game for him in this series.
Yeah, it was, look, at the beginning, it looked a little shaky for Burkan when we saw that first, but it ended up coming down to understanding his own decks and matchups. I think he was a little bit better off overall during this whole thing. And that matchup, like you said, it was a pivotal part of this whole set.
And you saw right here, Gas finds himself with about 40 elixir up on Burkan. He sends it all at the bridge. No problem there. And this is that final sequence we were just talking about. You can see Gas kind of panicking because he goes, oh no, Royal Recruits right into an Electro Giant. Heal Spirit plus E-Barbs right there into a Fireball. No way, no how, no stopping. And that's exactly what you had talked about at the top of this set. What are you going to do in that matchup? And honestly, he did way better than I think either of us thought he would. But then at the end, Burkan goes, all right, I'm tired of this. Electro Giant at the bridge, game over.
Yeah. I think it also goes to like Burkan, why were you not pushing earlier, right? You know he had no defense. And I think he sat back a little too much when he could have taken control of that whole game.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point that you kind of point out there, man, because there was a moment earlier where we were like, he needed to over defend. He should have over defended there. And that was when he didn't over defend. He took way too much damage. And then the comfortability that he had for the entire set just disappeared. It evaporated. And that's when he found himself not going on offense, saying, until the very end when he kind of hit the panic button and was like, all right, well, I'm going to lose unless I try to win. So I'm going to try to win now. And he easily did what he had done for the first half of that game.
It was like, oh look, I have this card. Let me see what it does, and it goes very well in this matchup. Who would have thought? So yeah, he realized just late enough, just enough to take that match. I think if he didn't drop that on the bridge, he was gonna lose because slowly he was losing complete control of that match.
So here we go. Our winner of Group A, Lucas GSM, is going to be moving on through to our finals, along with our winner of Group B, who was SoCal. That was established yesterday, and of course today to catch us up. Burkan, winner, Group C. He picks up 3 games against Tsukuyomi, doesn't drop one, comes back and battles it out with Gas in a great 5-game set, comes out on top with that beautiful Electro Giant at the bridge at the end. And here we go, Eric, down to the elimination bracket, where we'll be seeing one of these two gentlemen face off against Gas down the road, Demas and Tsukuyomi. How do you feel about this matchup?
I want to see a little bit more out of Tsukuyomi. I'm not sure what decks he has prepared for this. That first RG deck is going to struggle quite a bit, though. That Earthquake is not used that much in this meta, and it's for a reason, right? When you look at Divas's decks, it doesn't really do anything to any of the troops, any of the structures. So I want to see what else he has. He's already showing us something different, which is good.
Yeah, looking like this could be maybe a mortar deck with what we've seen so far. No, it's wall breakers, excuse me. Yes, Valkyrie wall breakers, bats there. Nice feed there to the Mega Knight. Of course, that is Demas's favorite card. And now we'll see how Tsukuyomi sets up for defense.
I'm surprised that he put wall breakers there knowing the deck that he was up against. It was just going to put him in a very bad position where he kind of forced himself into defending, right? If you just don't drop those wall breakers, you can reset and you have control of the match. As soon as he dropped those wall breakers, he should have known that Mega Knight is going to come down. And yeah, he used the Mega Knight to get rid of wall breakers and a barely alive Valk, but that's not the issue. The issue is, how am I going to defend now? Because I have a Tesla, my Valk is out of cycle. So he forced himself into a bad position.
And that's just a big mental mistake there, Eric, because, you know, one thing that we saw from Demas is that he's rocking Mega Knight in all 3 of his decks, correct?
Yeah, and he needs to I mean, look at the first 4 cards, right? That's what was on the board originally before he dropped those wall breakers. You know exactly what deck it is because Demas played this deck 3 times already today, and he lost all 3 times with it, but you have to identify what you're going up against, and that's the only reason we're seeing that he lost control out of this.
Yeah, Demas trying to shake this deck off his back. Probably would love to finish out this day with a win with this deck and a win in this set. So here we go. Wall breakers right into some Spear Goblins and a Valkyrie. Valkyrie going to tank for both of those. Miner goes opposite lane with some wall breakers to get some dual lane pressure. Mega Knight comes down. Yeah, really nice push on both sides. And the Snowball comes out to take the bats off the board. So just good stuff here from Tsukuyomi, now having to deal with the counter push on the opposite lane.
Needs to be careful because I think one of the wall breakers lives. There it is, and very heads up with the fireball, understanding that Tesla was not going to be able to tank for both wall breakers because of how much damage it had already taken. So very good play out of Tsukuyomi, and I think he feels a lot more comfortable with this than the RG deck that we saw him play earlier on.
Definitely. I mean, I think that's you're hitting the nail on the head when you talk about comfortability, because he just seems to be playing a lot more with his head on his shoulders. You know, it's not even that his opponent's playing worse, and it's not even that he's doing anything too flashy. He's just playing a much cleaner game than what we saw out of him earlier.
Yeah, even though he's losing, yeah, I understand he's losing, but look at the pushes, look at the way he's forcing out split lanes and all this. He is playing against one of the best players in the world when we talk about Mega Knight, so it's okay to be losing this, but at least I'm seeing him in the match, right? The previous matches with the RG, it just looked like he had no chance.
And those wall breakers very healthy. That's going to be towered down. Beautiful plays there from Demas. Every single time that it felt like Tsukuyomi needed that Tesla to be on the board. Other than one push, I think it was just not there. A really, really great job of the dual lane pressure, Mega Knight tanking for Bandit, getting that Tesla off the board time and time again, making it look easy.
He did, and he understood that. He's played matchups like this so many times. And on the other end, Tsukuyomi, other than I think there was a couple mistakes where he didn't have the Valk in hand. You need to always have the Valk in hand for that Mega Knight, especially if it's going to be accompanied by the Bandit. And that Mega Knight Bandit, when there is no Valk and just the Tesla, is going to take care of the Tesla in no time. If you have the Valk Tesla combination, you can actually deal with everything.
And it is really hard to get that Valk down in a place to where the Bandit doesn't dash and the Mega Knight doesn't leap. But there was definitely a couple opportunities there where we could have seen better placement from Tsukuyomi and his tank to at least not get both of them. Because we did see, I believe, both of those things happen a couple times, which makes it really, really difficult, as you said, Eric, to defend, because that Valkyrie plus Tesla is such a great combination. But you really need that Valkyrie there to keep that Tesla on the board.
Exactly that. And he's going back to this deck, so we're still going to be wondering what that third deck is going to be from him. We already know all the decks coming from Demas. This is the other Mega Knight deck, the one that comes with the Zappies and the Royal Hogs. So I want to see how he does against this. I think this is even a little bit harder than the other one was. You have Tesla, but you know there's going to be so much pressure at one point that I want to see how he deals with it. That's Wall Breaker is going to connect, so not all that bad of a start.
Yeah, that's a good play there by Tsukuyomi, who takes advantage of that miscycled Mother Witch to the left-hand lane. I believe Demas was trying to use that Mother Witch to pull that Valkyrie in on the right-hand side. Instead, she takes the long walk to the left-hand side. Tsukuyomi defends for very cheap, and that's what allows that wall breaker connection on the left-hand side.
Yeah, one Hoggy gets away, which isn't really a big problem. That Tesla's going to take care of everything. And that was more of just a cycling from Demas than actually trying to get some damage going. He's trying to figure out the best way for him. And that's why you see him, you know, kind of looking up, seeing what am I going to do to get back in this game? And I think it all comes down to waiting for Tsukuyomi to put that wall breakers behind the Valk, behind the bigger push. And if he does do that, a Mega Knight is going to come down, and that's when it's going to get a little bit tricky for him.
So we see that Elite Barbarians plus Mother Witch push. Mother Witch dropped right at the bridge, most likely looking for the bats, as those have been a very good response here for Tsukuyomi to deal with those pushes at the bridge, and of course trying to turn those bats into some piggies. And an offense, nice quick push there from Tsukuyomi, baits out the fireball.
It does, and the only bad thing is that there's nothing really that Demas has to worry about with the fireball once it's used like that, right? Usually when we see the bats and the miner get a fireball, you get excited because like, oh, now he has this troop. But when you look at the deck up top, what else is he going to use the fireball on?
Yeah, it's actually a really, really solid point that you make. That fireball only going to come out probably in desperation situations. A great snowball there to reset those E-barbs, to slow them down just a bit, to get a nice wall breaker connection on the right-hand side. 1777 and 1710, respectively, from right to left at the bottom of your screen.
He needs to be careful with that barb that's sneaking in there. Yeah, as soon as I saw that go behind the Hoggies, I was like, oh no, that is not what you want, because you can't do anything about it, and the damage is so much more than any Hoggy on your tower.
And there you go, a great bait there. You get the Mega Knight out, so you see the full send from Tsukuyomi on the left-hand side. Easy fireball pick up there, as you said, Eric. Once Demas recognizes there's not really much on the board that he has to pay attention to fireball-wise, he is now really putting the hurt on by baiting that out early on, and then turning his other pushes into something that you wish he had a fireball for.
And yeah, and slowly he's just taking complete control out of this. He can even Mega Knight this. He can Elite Barbs. He can do whatever he wants at this point. He took control of the match. And when you have a minor wall breakers deck and you're not controlling, or you're far behind, it's a slow end to your day, or at least end to this deck, because it's such a hard deck to come back from. It's usually one that you have to have control with.
Yeah, and that is a really great point when you're playing these control style decks. Yes, you can be down a little bit of damage early on, and even then you don't really want to be down at damage ever. But when you talk about this massive of a gap, we're talking over 1,000 HP in the best case scenario, you're really, really in trouble. Fireball in, piggies on tower, flying machine behind, and healthy. Yeah, that's going to be it.
Yeah, he has Mega Knight in hand as well now with this cycle. He goes Elite Barbarians. It doesn't really matter what he chooses to defend with. It's just another cycle of a Fireball. If he even decides to defend this, he does, which is okay. And there is the Fireball. GG.
So a rough day for our friend Tsukuyomi. Top of the screen there. He's found himself, I believe he's now 0-5 on the day. Still looking to pick up his very first victory and obviously trying to not become eliminated. That is what happens here. The loser of this set will be eliminated from GameStars. They will no longer be in contention for that $30,000. Demas doing a good job here in set number 1 and now in set number 2. Looking pretty clean here, Eric.
He does, and I mean, that first deck, I'm sorry, that deck that we saw him using in the first match as well. He used it first up, and he played so clean with it. So definitely, I expect to see him, if he moves on to further days, to keep that in his deck rotation. He clearly knows how to play it very, very well. And on the other end, Tsukuyomi, I think I go to my third deck here and just try and see what happens. He's halfway through lunch now. He decided, you know what, I'm going on my lunch break.
Yeah, so here we go. It looks like we will be seeing that third deck, Eric. I think. I can't remember if we saw Fisherman.
It could be the
before.
RG, and that is
RG
not the
down.
play.
Yeah,
I'm not sure why he decided to go RG with knowing what deck was coming, right? You know that he has this mortar deck that we already spoke about earlier that is very, very strong against RG.
Yeah, and when you play it correctly, we saw it dominate Royal Giant early. So here we go. Demas, what could be a good matchup, but also you and I had a very extensive conversation earlier today about something that looks good on paper, maybe not the case in play. We'll see if Demas can kind of recreate his inner Igor and dominate this Royal Giant matchup.
He should be able to, as long as he plays calm. He understands that all he needs is a little bit of chip. Once this gets into that double, triple elixir, as he defends, he could also be minoring. That's the nicest part about this mortar deck, that you don't have to avoid defending to go on offense. You could defend while attacking.
Yeah, and that's actually not only is it important, but it's also integral, man. I mean, that's the only way you're going to win in these sort of matchups is if you got to create pressure with that minor regularly because you need that damage. There are going to be moments on these pushes where that Royal Giant gets a shot or that Giant Skeleton gets a little too close. So getting that chip from the minor every single time it's in cycle is really important, and this is exactly what I'm talking about. Royal Giant comes in, gets a couple shots on that tower, and now already Demas is is behind.
I think the problem is there's no real reason for him to be going mortars offensively, right? When we saw this played earlier, you just need to save your mortars. Be careful not to receive too much damage because look at the chip. He just went one miner. That was it. A miner, and he's back in the lead. So as long as you can just understand that you don't really need to go offensively, he's giving up these mortars way too easily.
Yeah, that's a really bad mortar. Not only is it a mortar directly into an Earthquake, which you know your opponent has, but it was a mortar into a Musketeer, tanking for the tower, which means, again, your best stop for that Royal Giant, at best, without the Earthquake, is already at half health. Earthquake comes in, and now you've got nothing.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I don't really understand that play out of him, especially because we know he has cards in his deck that he could have cycled, right? You could always use those skellies on a Musketeer and it's basically gone. This is what you want to do. This is exactly the play that we need to see out of him every time, but he misses the mortar placement.
Wow. Yeah, that is just brutal there. So now Tsukuyomi looking like he may have a little bit left in the tank. Bringing that tower down to 1462 is Demas, but only 916 remaining on the bottom left-hand side of your screen. And I've been in this situation before. It's a tough spot to be in. You have to defend, obviously, with that mortar, but you don't want to give Earthquake value. And, of course, this Giant Skeleton Bomb is nothing but a nuisance.
Yeah, the only positive side is that Giant Skeleton Bomb doesn't do what it used to do. But look how easily he defended once he actually got the right defense in. If you just rinse and repeat that, you can still win this match. You have the chip damage that you need. And all you need to do is Valk, Mortar, and good Skellies there to make sure that that Fisherman does not pull.
Yeah, that was maybe the only thing that could have went really bad there for Demas, was if his Musketeer was taken off the board, obviously being its highest DPS card other than those Skeletons. And so Musketeer stays on the board with Skeletons and Valkyrie help. Another Poison comes in to get on top of that Musketeer and Royal Giant. Royal Giant not going to be a threat here. Log going to come out maybe later. Doesn't need it here to drop the Royal Giant back or the Musketeer, but that chip damage is obviously something that Demas is looking for.
This is where I want to see him just simply, okay, now you can miner. I was going to say don't miner because you know there's Fisherman, so just simply defend. That Fisherman being played there actually works out so well for him. He needs to, on the other side, Tsukuyomi needs to save that Fisherman every time for the miners, or he's not going to be able to stop any damage.
Royal Giant going into that mortar, which is also tanking that Musketeer up high. Musketeer dropped right on top of the mortar. Nice placement there. Miner going to go to the inside here. Does get on tower. Poison is in. Needs, I believe, just the log to take the tower down. Not 100% sure, though, as I didn't see what the HP was at when we started. Mortar comes down. Got to get the log out as soon as possible. There's the log in. Now maybe sends in the miner. Tower got 6 HP remaining. There's the poison. Tsukuyomi down in 3. Demas 3 up, 3 down, and he's going to be moving on to play against the loser of who just was brought down from our winners bracket. Really nice stuff there from Demas, and a really rough day for Tsukuyomi. You got to feel for the guy.
I feel for it, man. 0-6. You never want to, even if you lose, you just want to get a couple games on the board. But Demas, what we spoke about earlier, right? There was that mid-game adjustment to what we were speaking that he has to do. He realized it, and once he did, there was 0 damage on his tower taken at any point. That matchup is a great matchup if you know how to play it, and at the second half of that game, it seemed like he knew how to play it.
You got to have the confidence to switch things up if it's not working, which means you have to have a lot of confidence in your defense. You have to keep that defense versatile. You have to make sure you're switching it up so your opponent is always left guessing. There's not easy predicts in there, as you know, Tsukuyomi kind of put his opponent in great positions to predict regularly. You see this early on, that Tesla just never really being where Tsukuyomi needs it. Here on the other side of it, that elite barbarian cruises on through, gets a ton of damage in on that tower, and of course an easy cleanup with the fireball. It just felt like he was playing from behind all day.
It did. It 100% did. And I think Tsukuyomi just a little bit unfortunate on deck choices, matchups, and it could be a little bit of the nerves. I feel for it, man. That probably his first big competition, and you know, it hurts to see someone go 0-6.
For sure. Our hat is tipped to Tsukuyomi. Nice try, my friend. We'll see you at the next Gamestars. Maybe we'll see you in CRL down the road. Demas, though, is going to be continuing his journey through our Gamestars group stage. That's right, we are in the group stage here. We're going to be back tomorrow at the exact same time, and Friday. And if you weren't here at the very beginning of the show, that's 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and of course 6 p.m. CEST. We're back all day this week, or every day this week, I should say, up until the weekend where Eric and I will be caught over at CRL, and then we'll be back the week following that to finish out our group stages. Burkan, the winner of Group C, moving on to the group finals. You and I just kind of hang out and wait to call his matches down the road. Eric, I asked you the same question yesterday. I'm going to ask you again today. What do you think were the biggest takeaways? What were the biggest things we learned from watching Gamestars this afternoon?
I think it was a lot of we've talked about the first time, I think, about that mid-game adjustments. We saw it happen and we saw it not happen, and the previous days it was a lot of not making mistakes. Today was adjusting. So if we're putting all these days together, I think it's really giving good insight to everyone watching and understanding all the different aspects that Clash Royale has and how hard this game really is.
Yeah, and I think one of the best things that we've had as a broadcasting duo, Eric, is your insight into the deck selection and what that means for matchups down the road. It's something that players need to pay very close attention to, as we've seen them put in very, very poor positions in the most important moments in Game 4 or Game 5 of that set. So, guys, that is it for us today here at the Gamestars Season 1 group stage. For Eric Benamou, I'm Andrew Guy. We'll be back tomorrow at 9 a.m., as I said, on Thursday and on Friday to work our way through the group stage. 32 players down to 29 now, all battling it out for that lion's share of over $40,000. We will see you guys tomorrow. Have a great rest of your day.